Hello, my name is Ron Thurston, and I'm coming to you from the Retail in America tour. I'm in the clubhouse of a campground in New Mexico this week, and I can't wait to share what I'm doing and to talk about the relevance of brick and mortar retail, both in the US and South Africa, and share it for our conference this week. And so first, I wanted to thank Nedbank and IMC for inviting me to speak about relevance. And when I think about the retail industry, brick and mortar businesses, the people that are doing the work in retail all over the world, I can't think of a more important topic than relevance, because there's a lot of conversation and a lot going on, and I'm excited to share my insight and my perspective and some things that I'm doing here to celebrate retail. So first, let me introduce myself. Again, my name is Ron Thurston. I do call myself the champion for store teams. I love this business. I've worked in this business for decades, working my way up from stores into multi-store leadership, vice president of stores for a few brands that you may know, like Gap, and Apple, maybe Tory Burch. And this is just such a fun and exciting industry to work in. And I have really dedicated my life to inspiring people to take pride in their retail careers. And the way that I'm doing that today, so this year, about 3 months ago, I left New York City in an Airstream trailer. There's a photograph here of my home, and traveling across the country to have conversations with frontline retail workers, to hear their stories, to record podcast episodes with them, to recognize their hard work. I've already been to Miami and Orlando, Boston, Asheville. I'm working my way west. Like today, I said I'm in New Mexico. And my goal here is to fully understand and document the ways that humans are connected through their retail experience and how that experience has shaped their life. And retail truly is everywhere. It's in every city, it's in every country. We engage with it all the time. And careers in retail have truly shaped the lives of millions of people. And we have not always given it that credit. And so one of the things that I love to say is that I'm on a lifelong mission to inspire you to take pride in your retail career. And my next step forward will be the biggest one yet. So this tour is my biggest step forward to be able to do that and share what I'm learning along the way at meetings like this. And the way that this began was for a book that I wrote called Retail Pride, The Guide to Celebrating Your Accidental Career. And it was the first book written specifically to recognize the careers of frontline retail teams. Whether you're in stock, sales, leadership roles, this was a book about joy and celebration of a career in retail, what it means, things like pillars to be successful, empathy, curiosity, and focus. The top 10 reasons that we love working in retail. Like number one is we create joy. We do create joy in the work that we do. And we have to use language and words like this to talk about the relevancy of our career in this industry. So it started with my book. And now I really want to spend some time talking about brick and mortar retail, and raise your hand if you've heard any of these statements. I know it's virtual, but raise your hand. Retail is dead. The customer only wants to shop online now. Second, raise your hand if you've heard this, that it's impossible to hire great people. Third, that the customer expectations are higher than ever. And fourth, I don't know if retail is even relevant anymore. So I love those four concepts. And if you raise your hand with any of them, I'm going to hope to tell you what I believe is the real story happening out there in stores. And so I'm going to start here with the store. When I said, have you heard that retail is dead? That has been a common phrase that has been thrown around the growth of e-commerce. What happens here is that as we have become more technology entrenched, we will all crave better physical store experiences. And that's very much true. And I pulled some information here specifically about South Africa, because I know this is a global conference, but the host country, I think we need to speak about you. And so here, what it has said is that brick and mortar stores in South Africa generate almost all of the revenue and profit. And while online operations are expensive and sometimes often unprofitable and difficult to manage, but it seems as though the South Africans are eagerly trekking to department stores and specialty shops at their local malls. A company, Accenture, pointed to a study by credit card company Visa, which found that 63% of South Africans said they prefer to make purchases at a mall. And that another study by retail property research company Urban Studies found that 76% of South Africans visit a mall at least once a week. So that is clearly a really important part of the culture, the community of South Africa, and how we need to, as retailers, continue to be relevant to these 76% of people that visit a mall at least once a week. There's also some Accenture studies here that said retailers are taking a narrow approach to their business, maybe not investing in creating the full, convenient, and engaging online experiences that consumers are coming to expect as a pure play e-commerce companies provide. And the bottom line here is that you have a business model that is driven almost exclusively by stores, yet the customer expectations are saying, we also want to shop online. We want you to have an online presence and to make that investment, but to never forget about the investment in stores where the majority of business is coming from is where the true relevancy sits today. So the last quote that I'll use here is that based on an online survey of more than 19,000 respondents globally, about 1,000 of which were from South Africa, the report disclosed that physical stores remain the retail touchpoint with the highest frequency, driving retailers to transform in-store experiences with differentiated storefronts that turn stores into the ultimate shopping destination. That's from PricewaterhouseCoopers. And that kind of where I started with this quote as, are stores dead? Absolutely not. Are they critically important and need transformation to provide differentiation and growth? Absolutely yes. And I'm going to share just a few insights here specifically about the US business, because there's definitely a perception that the US is far ahead of the rest of the world in e-commerce. And a couple of statistics here. In 2021, the total commerce in the US was about $4.5 trillion US dollars, a growth of 14%. And e-commerce sales grew at a very similar pace, 14.2% from 2020 to 2021. Equating to about 19% of all commerce done of that 4.5 trillion, about 19% is done on virtually or on a website, which means that 81% of all commerce done is still done in a store. And that, I think, is sometimes a misunderstanding of the importance and relevance of stores. It's still 81% of the revenue is still coming that direction. Now, there's no question that the growth of e-commerce continues to climb. And whether it's from 8% 10 years ago to today at 19%, it's important, but to never forget that the biggest chunk of the business is still coming from stores. One piece that I think is very interesting, this is again US specific, is that in 2018, e-commerce grew at about 14%. 2019 grew at about 14% year over year. 2020, of course, during the pandemic when stores were closed, it grew at about 32%. But back in 2021, it's actually back to that 14% growth rate. And in 2022, it's actually not performing at 14% growth. In fact, it's showing some decline. And so all of that to say, we have to continue to talk about stores. We have to talk about people that work in stores, and you need an e-commerce strategy, but to not forget where the bulk of your business is coming from. The second question I asked you was, it's harder than ever to hire great people. And while yes, it can be challenging, to not forget that the retail industry directly employs 32 million Americans, making it the largest private sector employer in the economy. That's from the National Retail Federation. And of course, every role is different. Every company has different expectations. Every brand has a unique culture. And very few candidates excel in every aspect of a position, but when it all works, it's truly magical. And the reason I say that is because sometimes we have expectations of candidates that you both understand the product at its core, have a passion for the product, you fit into the company culture, you fit into on that store team effortlessly, you're exceptional at service. The bar we put so high on our retail teams, and you should, but also understand what's important every day, and that maybe your bar is too high or you're expecting too much from every single person that you're bringing on. Understand what they're good at and run with what they're good at, because no one's good at absolutely everything. And a couple of just hiring best practices that I believe always work is be part of your community, represent your community and your company with who you hire. That includes all kinds of different gender expressions and racial diversity. Everything should represent your community. Be open to non-traditional work histories and experiences. It's, again, sometimes we have this person in our head that come from certain companies that have certain skills that will come in on day two and make magic happen. And that's just not always the case. So sometimes the personality or the ability or the, I would say, opportunity to do more sometimes comes from non-traditional experiences. And of course, don't just settle for okay. So being open to non-traditional work doesn't mean you settle. It means you look for different competencies and different experiences that will ultimately add value to your business. I'm going to move on to customer relevance, because this is such an important part of this conference this week. And what I love to say is that retail has always been about understanding the customer and customer relevance, but now it's nothing short of imperative. We are in a very important stage in history of understanding customer expectations and customer relevancy. So a few things here. What do your customers expect from you today? So customers want, first, personalized interaction. When I mentioned earlier about the pillars of retail success of empathy, curiosity, and focus, empathy shows up in personalized interactions that you have with every single customer and, of course, your team. And the customer expects that. Customers want to be heard. They want you to be curious. They want you to understand their expectations. They want you to ask great questions, know who they are, know how they shop. Their relevance to you, it comes through in how curious you are about who they are and how you can deliver what they expect. And the customer also wants you to be proactive in your relationship, and they want it fast. So that is where focus comes into play. You should know what they want. It should be personalized, and it should be quick. And we've learned that through growth of e-commerce. We've learned that through Instagram. We've learned that speed of delivery is important, and the customer is certainly expecting it from you today. So what does that all mean for you? So this is something that I love to do, this exercise. I call it the kind of the customer touchpoint exercise. And the hint here is that you're engaging with your customers even when you don't know that you are. So I'm going to throw some things out around how you're engaging with your customer every step of the way. And so every national ad campaign or any local ad campaign, you're engaging with the customer. Any request for a meeting, what that journey looks like, how quickly you call them back, is a customer touch point. If you own your own website or the website for the brand you work for, that is a customer touch point. Every signage detail, indoor and outdoor signage, customer touch point. Every single phone call, of course. Every conversation that happens in your store, the booking process for anything that you do, of course, visual merchandising. That's a cornerstone of successful retail, is in-store visual merchandising, and everything the customer sees, hears, smells. You think about that in-store experience, that's all merchandising. And every single moment matters when you're building relevancy for your brand. Of course, all social media, often brands, the first thing that a customer does is find you on Instagram, find you on Facebook, find you where else they may want to engage, and what are you really all about. And of course, online reviews are often one of the things that customers look for first before they visit your store, before they engage with you as a business. Online reviews are a very important customer touch point that you need as your business grows. So this is where I looked. So you have all of those customer touch points as ideas, and there are 100 more. And the challenge here that I will give you for relevancy is, where are you winning or losing? Because every single one of those touch points and every single one of those pain points, if you're not winning, and every single one of those moments of delight, and every single one of those employee experiences that you have internally and externally, create loyalty and future business through relevancy. And relevancy is the new frontier for growth. So what do I mean by that? I think about brand loyalty and relevance as we're building our business and building our customers. There is very much a customer perceived value. So all of those touch points that we talked about create perceived value. And then what is the customer satisfaction when it comes to that? And what is their commitment to continue to do business with you after all those customer touch points, after all those employee engagements? What is their commitment and loyalty to continue to shop with you? So I'm going to just take a little bit of a deeper dive into what that means. So perceived value. Perceived value is the customer's evaluation of the merits of a product or service and the ability to meet their needs and expectations, particularly in comparison to your peers. And so everything about a touch point is a perceived value. Am I getting the most, meeting my expectations as a customer, and how relevant are you as a brand? Customer satisfaction, of course, is the measurement that determines how happy customers are with a company's products, services, or capabilities. And customer satisfaction information, including surveys, ratings, net promoter scores, online reviews, of course, as I mentioned earlier, are an important part of customer satisfaction. And the way that you change what that means is your response to that satisfaction survey. So if something comes back and is not positive, what are you doing to solve it? Because that's the best way to take a customer from a detractor. So in net promoter world, that would be on a scale of 1 to 10. Someone that scored a 6 or lower is a detractor to your brand, versus a promoter that scores you as a 9 or 10. How you handle that detractor is often the teller of the customer satisfaction and their ability and willingness to come back to your brand. And then, of course, commitment. Having a commitment to your brand means that you'll be delivering the same message every time you have an interaction with your customer. If you do this consistently over time, your customers will come to know what they can expect from your business. And that is true loyalty, is a commitment from the customer to what you do every day. And of course, from that commitment from your team to do it well. So I'm going to wrap it up here with a few just things for you to think about. So you want to grow your business this year with a combination of new and existing customers. I know that to be true of every business, no matter what you sell, how big of a business you have. Is the healthiest business is a combination of new and existing. The way to do it is to understand every single customer touch point. So I gave you a few ideas, but I would challenge you to go back and say, where else is my customer engaging with me? And it is a moment that is positive, or is it a moment that's negatively detracting from the relevancy of my brand? And identifying these will create customer and employee relevancy, and that is the new frontier for growth. And relevancy is made up of customer perceived value, this customer satisfaction, and of course, their commitment to shop with you. So I'm going to go back to the questions that I originally started with, which are, is retail dead? Absolutely not. And in fact, it's thriving in all over the world. And question 2, is it impossible to hire great people? Sometimes it's challenging. Yes. Is it impossible? No. And I would ask you to use some of these best practices or many others that you have to try to find the best people possible for your business, it's certainly not impossible. And are the customer expectations higher than ever? Yes, but we have tools and resources and ideas to meet that customer expectation. We owe it to them to deliver what the customer expects. And can you be relevant today with a dominant brick and mortar retail business? Absolutely yes. So with that, I will say thank you. Hello again from New Mexico. And a few things if you'd love to follow along on the tour. I will be doing this for an entire year. Like I said, it's a few months in. You can always subscribe at retailpride.com. I am Retail Pride on Instagram, Ron Thurston on LinkedIn and Facebook. I do have a podcast called Retail in America that's on Spotify and wherever else you listen to your podcast, where I interview frontline retail teams and really hear their stories. So I will see you on the road. And what I would say is, what can Pride make possible? That is almost anything. So thank you. Have a great conference.